Hi, everyone. Welcome to Life Part 2 with Karen Parts. Today I have with me Marcy Reisinger, and we met because I know her mom. And her mom and I go back many years, and we went out, we caught up in Florida recently. And I asked her mom, so, tell me about your kids, and she did. And so she told me about Marcy. And Marcy has a unique story. I can't wait for her to share it today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. So for those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Marcy, and I grew up with two deaf parents, so that makes me a coda. That's a child of a deaf adult, for those of you who don't know. So I grew up in the very, very long time ago of the 1980s. Um, and I actually grew up, ADA laws didn't exist. That's American with Disabilities Act. Didn't exist until I was about 10 years old. So I grew up at a time before there were laws specifically that helped my mom and dad. So I was asked, by teachers, by people in restaurants, by, people just in everyday stores to interpret for my parents. And I was always one of my parents' biggest fans because
We've got a dog here barking. We're pet sitting. It's
mine
real
is staring
people.
at the cat food.
Okay, so you grew up interpreting for your mom and dad,
Yeah.
along
And
ADA with
and
Americans with Disabilities Act for those
yes.
who are listening in today. That is a specific law that provides or ensures access, communication access for people who are deaf and hard of hearing.
So what was tough for me is that both my parents are highly educated, both hold master's degrees. Um, and it was hard growing up with that stigma of how people thought they were versus how they are. And I always resonated with the deaf community. We grew up in the deaf community. When we first moved to Connecticut, we lived on campus at American School for the Deaf. I would ride my bike there after school where my parents were. We were always involved. So the deaf community is small, but it is very, very mighty. And so we always had this great core group of people. And I loved it. There's an affection to the deaf community, there's a kindness, but also if you know the deaf community at all, there's a very big bluntness too. You will get told if something's wrong or if something's right, or if they don't know, they'll tell you, and they'll tell you what should happen. But it's an amazing community to be around. And as I got older and I moved from Connecticut to upstate New York, I really missed that community because it's the root of who I am. It's it's how I grew up. It's like instilled in me. So that's just kind of my background and how I grew up.
So today, let's fast forward a little bit because today I understand that you are the executive director of a school and an organization. So tell us about that and how did you create that, what I call a life part two for
Yes.
yourself? Maybe fill in some of that gap of what were you doing before you went down this road of becoming an executive director of a deaf school and deaf organization.
So before I started doing this, I was a mom and I'm still a mom. I have three amazing kids. Um, and for those of you who might not understand or something like that, I do have we had genetic testing done and my daughter also carries the gene of deafness. I carry the gene. So we still have that in our family. But I was a mom to my three kids. I was a teacher. And I started going to Kenya 10 years ago. This will be my 10th year. Um, just to help because of
How
I
did you
start
from Kenya?
I love photography, and so someone at my church who ran another organization asked if I would go with them. And at first I was very, very hesitant to go. I did not want to go. And
How was that?
I was nervous. I mean, my youngest child was 7, and I just wasn't sure about the travel or different things. And it was actually my husband who encouraged me to go. And so whenever he complains about me going now, I tell him it's his fault. Uh, he doesn't complain often. But I started going with that church group and that organization 10 years ago. And it wasn't until COVID that it actually changed for me.
And how did it change?
So that year of February 2020, we were driving down the road in a really small village in Kenya, and I saw this little 8 by 10 sign, and it said "School for the Deaf." And I said, I just want to look at it. Like, I just want to take a look. Let me see. And the director of the old organization said to me, he goes, if you look at it, you'll have something to do with it. And I was like, no, I won't. I just want to look. And lo and behold, he was right. I did want something to do with it because it absolutely called to me. Like it was like going home. It was seeing,
Take me into that school. That day
yes,
that you walked into that school, take me there.
yes. So I walk in and it had just started being built. So they just had a dormitory for the kids, a tin shed for a kitchen, and a double classroom. So like probably just a 40-foot in length cut into classroom for 80 students. So for 80 kids, that's where they were going to be.
And
And
how
that's
old were
all
these,
that
what
existed.
was the age range of these
The
kids?
age range is from preschool to ninth grade. So that is those are all the kids. That's where they were in those 2 classrooms, and like dirt floors that were broken up, and eating from plates but sitting on the ground because there was nowhere to sit. Um and that was common. And I just but it felt like home somehow. There were kids, they were signing, they were so shocked and excited I could sign. Um I was very excited to learn that they use the ASL alphabet because the other choice was the British alphabet, and I can't do that. That is that is very hard. Um, but they were just they just had never seen someone else outside of their teachers who had been able to sign to them. So this was something brand new. And so the principal and I got together. We did an entire year of financial integrity, just showing that the finances could be used in a proper way and that we could give to the school and that it would be given back to the children. So we did a full year of that. That's really important. That's something that you should absolutely do in a third world nation is make sure there's financial integrity with your leaders. I mean, that's something we should do here. Who knows? But we have a great relationship. And just being able to, we have a deaf teacher there who just graduated with her bachelor's degree. She's amazing. And just being able to see them succeed despite the experiences and the circumstances they have is amazing.
That is, I love how stories weave together like that, because I really believe that we have callings within us. and they appear out of nowhere, but they're really for us.
Yes.
We have stumbled and walked right into that. So, in the last 3 years, you've been executive director. Tell me about that.
So I decided at that point when we had really gotten to know each other better and everything, I was actually going to break off from the other organization and start my own. So that's when I started my own 501(c)(3 um with and I had to do all of that, and that was, all the paperwork, all the organization, gathering a board, all those things. And we were going to solely focus on deaf children and children with disabilities. And that's really where it all kind of came together, is my childhood and just being able to everything I experienced and be able to give back to that and the community that I had been in love with and been involved with for so long. So we started, so 3 years ago,
I'm sorry, how often do you go to Kenya?
I go to Kenya once a year. I'm hoping to start going twice a year. But the principal and I talk every single day. So I always know what's going on with the kids. I always know what's happening with the school. It's really wonderful.
What's the name of your organization? How
Our
can
my name, the name of my
people,
organization is Hearts That Hear, like here.
and how can people contribute to it?
So we have a sponsorship program, and it allows you to sponsor a child for $38 a month. And what that does is that gives them their educational fees, because one of the issues in Kenya is that public school is free, but any sort of special education is not. And so you have a society that thinks less of people with disabilities. So they're less likely to send their children to school in the first place. And then you have an added cost on top of that. So they're not likely to send their children with disabilities to schools. Um, the average age of a child starting school for us is between 10 and 11. So that means they've lost all their language from the age of when they were born all the way until there. A lot of them have no idea how to communicate. A lot of them have they don't have skills, that your basic hygiene skills, things like that we have to teach them. But I will tell you, once a kid gets started in school, their sign language and their communication takes off. It is absolutely amazing. The kids start teaching them sign, teachers start teaching them, the staff starts teaching them, and they just grab onto it because that is truly their language. And you just,
Amazing thing. I mean, something that we take so much for granted here in the United States. Now,
yes.
realizing that other places may not have the same kind of structure that we have here. What are some of the needs that you have in this school currently?
Right now, I would say our biggest need with the school is we're trying to get a science classroom going. The building is built, but getting things into that science classroom, because right now our students walk 2 miles a day to get to a science classroom at another school. Um, and if that laboratory is taken, then they have to walk the 2 miles back to then do something else. Another huge need we have is these kids have been extremely medically neglected. So we have ear infections all the time. That's one thing that we really need to take care of, that we get our kids just hearing checked. We have a few with eye issues, and we have a boy who completely has glaucoma. So he's going to have surgery to have that taken care of. We have a girl with a growth in her eye, and we know, for deaf education, being able to see is such a huge thing, and it's such a huge necessity. Um, we also have electricity that goes in and out as it feels like it. So we're looking to build solar. Um, there's an amazing amount of sun in Africa. So we we
So true. So those of you who are listening or watching this, you can go to the Hearts, it's heartsthathear.org, and you can donate any amount of money, or you can sponsor a child for a small amount of money each month, and the money goes a long way. It really does. So switching gears just a little bit, let's back up just a little bit. What was the point where your life started changing and pivoting?
I think I want to say it pivoted when I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Like I knew what my ultimate goal was, and it was truly to serve the children in this community. I kind of felt pulled all over the place before, but being in the deaf community, I felt like I had found my place. So really finding my place kind of changed it.
You know, that's an amazing thing when you find something that called within you, and this is what I call a passion moment, realizing that you're passionate about something. So let's talk about that word passion. What does it mean to you and how do you define it?
Um, I would define it as a feeling as being called to do what you're supposed to do. That that it's a fire inside you and it's not it won't stop. It's just you want to keep going. As long as that fire's inside you, you want to keep it going. And so you keep it going. Um and when you find it, it truly it just like I love to go back to the fire analogy because it ignites you and you're ready to go and you're ready to do that. And I think that passion is truly just doing what you're called to do and knowing that almost that like there's a fight inside of you and you want to keep going with it.
Now let's shift a little bit and talk about fear, because I think fear is one of the biggest barriers between passion and dreams. Fear often stops us from living fully, and it stops us from experiences our calling, our dreams, and our passions fully. So when you think about fear, what is the biggest lesson that you have learned about fear on this journey?
Um, I would say you just have to let it go. Um, Whenever I think about all the awful things that could happen or all the awful things. I mean, and I've seen awful things. Like it's not like I go there and it's all roses and butterflies and nice things. I've seen some really tough stuff and I just say you got to keep going because the good outweighs the bad. All the amazing things you can do outweighs the bad things that might happen. And even if it does happen, there are better things to come. Like you just, I would say you have to keep going. Whenever I invite anyone on a trip with me, I always say to them, I'm like, come enjoy a little bit of my trauma. I'll share it with you. We're all trauma bonded when we go there. It's a different experience and it's something like you've never seen before and you really do. And you just have to go for it. So you just kind of have to shove the fear down and go keep going.
Do you have a favorite quote that you live by?
I do. It's tattooed on me. It's right on my arm.
Is it? What does it say?
It's a quote from the Bible. It's actually Romans 12:10, and it says, "Love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other." Because in the end, we really should honor each other, regardless.
That is a beautiful quote.
Uh,
Wow.
It's
Beautiful.
my favorite one.
And wrapping this up, what would you tell somebody who is in the middle of a life part two, but they're holding back? They're afraid. They're like they've played it safe for so long, and now they've got something in front of them that is bigger, that's calling to them, but they're really truly afraid of that life part two. What would you tell them?
Um, I hate to quote Nike, but just do it. Like, just do it. Um, just
That
go
might
ahead.
be a tattoo for you.
And it might be. I don't I don't know if I'd do that one, the little check mark. Um, just go for it. Really, just dive in because the worst that can happen is you can fail. But you know what? You get to fail and you get to do it again and again and again. And that's the thing. Failing is only failing if you consider it failure. Keep going forward, keep trying. There's going to be there'll be 100 failures before you get to succeed. So if you start it now, maybe you'll fail 100 times and then 101, it'll be success. But you have to keep going with it. You have to be able to look at something and say, you know what, now's the time. I don't have enough time to wait for this because we none of us know how much time we have.
It is such a beautiful way to wrap it up because none of us know how much time we have.
Yeah.
There's so much for sharing your journey with us today.
Ew.